What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the channel. If you've never been here before, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. Hit the subscribe button. There's a lot of content there for you to check out. Everybody else, welcome back. I appreciate you tuning in. As you see, I got my boy Pete here with me today.
How you doing?
My buddy Pete lives here with me in the neighborhood. Good friend of mine. And we're going to talk about today how I basically beat a murder charge. When I was arrested, I was charged with murder in the second degree, but I ended up pleading guilty to manslaughter in the first degree. And it was an offer that took a lot of work to get because the judge was offering me 20 to life for 3 years straight. The judge didn't want to budge. He didn't want to drop the murder charge. Every time I would go to court, he would say, if you'd like to plead guilty, I'll give you 20 to life. I'll give you 20 to life. And I had to find a way out of that because I knew, coming from a family of law enforcement, the one thing that I knew was that if I took 20 to life, I was dying in the prison.
That's it. You wasn't coming home.
You know, I knew that. On what happens is when you have in different states are different. In New York State, life means life. That means they can keep you for the rest of your life. Like if you go to a state like New Mexico and they give you a life sentence, life could mean 15 years most. You know, I'm not sure if that's the case,
right,
but I'm saying some states work like that. In New York, life means life. So
if I want that L on your back.
No, if I would have taken 20 to life, that would mean that when I go to the parole board after you serve the full 20 years, and then they make a decision whether they're going to release you or not. And if they don't release you, they tell you come back 2 years later. And then you go back to the parole board 2 years later, and they say denied, come back 2 years.
As long as that L's on it,
they can do that for life.
Yeah, forever.
Right? My friend had 3 to life. It was a drug bid. They used to give that weird number. He got caught with 2 kilos of cocaine. So he pled guilty to 3 to life. They held him for 36 years.
Holy shit.
Yeah, he would go to the parole board every 2 years, right? My buddy Anthony, 25 to life. They held him 34 years. You know what I mean? They just come. And I know a lot of guys that died in there with life. They never made it out.
You don't want that out.
Right. So I didn't want to take that life no matter what. I knew better. But the judge wouldn't budge. This was a problem, you know? And so this train of thought that I had, Pete, I had before they even arrested me. You know, I knew I was going to get caught. I knew that I was going to be charged with murder. And I knew that I was probably going to die in the prison system. That was my thought. I said, they're going to catch me and I'm going to die, especially because I had a criminal history.
Right.
I had 5, 6 arrests already.
You had a bad track record.
Right. So now if I didn't take the plea bargain and go to trial, which I'm going to lose because I'm guilty of the crime. I know that. Right. If I don't take it and I lose the trial, I get 25 to life. Right. So I had to find a way out. And so what I did was I started this from the moment I was arrested. In other words, when they catch me in the state of Texas, I was on the run. And they bring me back to New York. They fly me back to New York. And they go to... Now, let me say this, too. I wanted to explain this because a lot of the viewers will say this. Like, I was thinking of self-preservation. You know, and it doesn't matter whether if I felt bad for my crime or not, or you know what I mean. Just because I was doing this doesn't mean that I wasn't remorseful.
Right.
You know, even though I was remorseful, I'm not going to say, okay, give me life in prison.
Yeah.
I'm
you don't want it.
I'm thinking of self-preservation now, whether I feel bad for the crime or not, which I did feel bad. It was, you know, that's a whole different story.
Sure.
I didn't mean for it to happen. I was out of my mind on fucking drugs.
Right. You weren't in the right frame of mind.
Right. Now I'm thinking I got to save myself. That's all I'm thinking.
Sure.
Right. And so they bring me back to New York, and the detectives that caught me
from Texas.
No, yeah, I got caught in Texas from a guy named Jeff Cook, who was a Texas Ranger, but he had 2 New York City homicide detectives.
Oh, really? When he grabbed you?
Yeah. So what happens is the 2 New York City homicide detectives go to Texas, and they can't just run around Texas by themselves.
Correct.
They got to be escorted, and so they would get an escorted from this guy Jeff Cook. Right, who was a Texas Ranger. I was sleeping in bed. I might as well mention how I got caught. I was sleeping in bed.
That's a quick story.
Yeah, I was sleeping in bed, and all I heard was the shotgun. And I turned and in my face, right? And he was a real Texas Ranger. The cowboy hat, 2 guns on the side, cowboy boots. And I remember he said, you move, boy, I'll kill you.
Yep.
I said, I'm not moving a muscle.
Not an inch.
That's what I told him. I'm not moving a muscle. And I look over, and there's the 2 New York City detectives with the red lights. The red lights right on me. I got caught. I was caught. And I always told everyone, only time I ever got caught in my life, because I'm a fast motherfucker, but they got me sleeping, there was nothing I could do. And I fought extradition for a few months. I tried to. I stayed in the Houston County Jail for a couple of months, and I had no wins there. They used evidence against me to ship me back, blood evidence, DNA evidence, and which is one of the reasons I knew they're going to get me no matter what.
How long were you on the run, though?
Like 3 months. Yeah. And so now they ship me back. They bring me back to New York. And the detectives that brought me back were cool. They were good dudes. They were all right.
Just doing their job.
Yeah, they treated me respectfully. They weren't assholes. They caught me and brought me back. And they go to take me to the central booking in Queens. They go to drop me off in jail. They caught me. Their job is done.
Yeah.
They're going to drop me off in jail. And when the first thing that happens is this is where my plan started. In my mind, I'm like, how do I get out of this?
Wheels are spinning already.
Right. It seems like an impossible thing to get out of. And I'm thinking, how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? And my way to get out of it was this. I was arrested 10 times in my life before this.
Yeah, but not for no big shit, not heavy shit.
Yeah, but very bad assaults, felonies.
Yeah.
I was arrested for felonies. Felony assault on a police officer 3 different times, and other assault charges, fighting in my hometown.
You had a colorful past.
Right. But every time I was arrested, it happened in my hometown, right? Where my grandfather was the police commissioner and where my father was a lieutenant and when my grandmother had a lot of political juice. So every time I would get arrested, the court in my town only handles misdemeanors. If it's a felony, they got to send you to Mineola. Right. But they only handle. So I would get charged with these felonies, serious felonies, and the court didn't want to turn me over to Mineola because the world works on who you know, Pete.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so I don't say this to sound like a big shot. I wasn't a big shot. I was a kid, but I used to eat dinner in the judge's home.
You had a lot of juice.
Yeah, I used to, as a kid. I went to high school and junior high school there's only 2 judges in my town. I went to high school and junior high school with one of their sons. And I used to go to the judge's house after school and play with his son. And the other judge was my grandfather's friend, and I used to go to his house with my grandfather and
eat dinner. So they know you since you were little kids.
Right. So even though my grandpa was retired, the judge was still on the bench, and I was the grandson of the former commissioner.
Knew.
Right. So he would take the felony and drop it to a misdemeanor. This way I didn't have to get shipped over to Mineola. Right.
Staying in house.
Right. And he would do this all the time. And to the point where he was sick of it, you know what I mean? But he would still do it. And he would out
of respect for you.
Right, out of respect for my father and my grandfather. So as a kid, I loved this.
Sure.
They were really enabling me. That's the truth, right? But they thought of it as doing a favor, right? And back in the 80s and the 90s, it wasn't like it is today. There was nothing on film. There was no body cameras to that they had to hide, right? And so that was the way that it worked for me, And like I said, as a kid, I loved that, because I was getting away with everything, right? Who was getting pissed off were the police officers,
right? Because they were dealing with your ass.
Yes, and it was like I had a little more juice than the cops.
Sure.
I had the fucking judges letting me go. You know what I mean? And so now, not only did they take the felonies and drop them to misdemeanors. Now I had the misdemeanors to deal with. They still didn't want to put me in jail. So what they would do is they would say, this kid has a mental problem. Put him in a rehab for 30 days. He's got a drug problem. Put him 6 months in this program, 90 days in this program. So every time I would get in trouble, they would put me to a program.
Mental or drugs.
Yeah, Nassau County Medical Center, the Psychiatric ward, 45 days. Release him to South Oaks Hospital Rehab. Put him on medication.
Give him another program.
Right, yes. And I would go to fucking programs nonstop. They love this thing called MICA, mentally ill chemical abuser. Put him in a mentally ill chemical abuser program. So the cops.
So what? The drugs made you crazy? That's what this day.
Now you go to the hospital. It becomes a whole game because now the hospital loves to diagnose you. You heard the thing? They'll diagnose a ham sandwich.
Sure.
Right. They want to give out drugs.
Yeah.
He's got bipolar disorder. He's got manic depression.
Biggest drug dealers out there.
Yes. So I have all the paperwork still to this day about all these diagnoses that they would give me. So now when I get arrested for the murder. Aha. Right. I need that.
Light bulb goes off.
Yes, this is right. Maybe one last time I could use this to help me.
Sure.
So when those cops go to take me off and drop me off in central booking on that murder charge, right? The first thing that happens when you walk into a jail, for those of you that have never been in jail, the first thing that happens to you is they do an intake. You have to go through an intake process. And they sit you down and they say, are you on any medication? Have you ever been in a hospital? Is there anything wrong with you?
Yes.
Are you fit?
Yes, there is.
Right. So they asked me, are you on any medication? And I said, this is before they accept you into the jail. And I said, yes, I'm on medication. And they said, what are you on? I says, I'm on lithium. I'm on Prozac. I'm on Silert. I'm on Thorazine. They said, why are you on these drugs? I said, well, I've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, manic depression, and I give them some other stuff, psychotic features. I had a ton of diagnoses. And my mother had saved all this paperwork.
You probably had a file like that.
I still have it all right there, dude. I got all of it. Right?
I've seen it.
Yeah. And so at this point, they said, have you ever been in a psychiatric hospital? And so as I'm telling them this, I'm acting. I'm crying. I'm shaking.
Play the part.
I'm playing it like I can't even do it right now without laughing.
Right.
I did it with my heart and soul. And the truth is,
your life is on the line now.
Yes. And at the same time, I'm truly fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm coming off of angel dust. I'm coming off of drugs.
Detoxing.
I'm scared for my life. I just been arrested for murder. I'm going through all types of emotional shit.
Your brain's racing a million different directions.
I'm really a mess just in my life. So it was kind of easy for me to fucking fall into this part. 24 years old.
Yeah,
I had just turned 24 a month earlier and 2 months earlier. So after they asked me, have you ever tried to commit suicide? I said, yes, I tried to commit suicide. When did you try to commit suicide? I said, one time I took a bottle of pills. Another time I was arrested for assaulting a cop, and I figured it's not even worth going through. I tried to hang myself. They cut me down in the cell, And so when I'm all done talking to them, they turn around and they tell the officer,
give him a straitjacket.
They said, I've been in the straitjackets too. So they tell the officer, we're not taking him in the jail.
Really?
Yeah. They said, we're not accepting him in the jail. So the officers are tired. They just flew me
from Texas.
They're exhausted. They want to go home.
Sure.
They're like, what do you mean you're not taking him? They said, we're not taking him in the jail. They said, why? They said, we believe he's high risk. He's high risk.
To hurt yourself or others?
Yeah, to hurt himself and others.
Okay.
They said, yeah. And they said, so take him to Kings County Psychiatric Hospital, and so, which is in Brooklyn. So they take me over to Brooklyn. They drive me over to Brooklyn and they put me in Kings County Psychiatric Hospital. Crazy place.
Yeah. Looney Tunes over there?
It's the criminally insane from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
The first night I was in Kings County Hospital, I'll just give you this quick story. The first night when they dropped me off, I'm in a dorm type setting and I'm exhausted. Imagine what I just been through. I just came off the plane. I've been traveling. Finally,
detoxing.
I'm a little relieved that they caught me. So there's like a little relief there because running is very stressful. And I'm laying in bed and it's about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And something just told me to open my. I couldn't sleep because everything that's going on in my brain,
noise or whatever else.
And I open my eyes, and there's a naked black dude standing above me. Dude, he's just fucking standing above me.
Breathing over you?
Yeah, dude, like this, stark naked, dick out, everything, right? So I could see, you look at someone, and you could look at someone and see if they're insane.
Yeah, you can see it in their eye. You got the twinkle.
And I'm laying in my bed like this, and I look at him, and I start sitting up. I don't break eye contact with him, And when I come to standing up, I punch him in the face as hard as I can, knock him down. The lights go on. They come running in, tie me down in what's called 5-point restraints, hit me with a needle of Thorazine.
Yeah, calm me down?
Yeah, right away, dope you up. Next morning, I got to appear before a judge. You have to be arraigned on the charges. My first court date, you got to be before a judge within 24 hours after your arrest, unless it's a weekend.
You see them on Monday.
Yep. Right. So in the morning.
Don't get arrested on Friday.
Don't get arrested on Friday because if you don't get bail, they'll let you. You got to sit. That's right. Yeah, you're right. You don't want to get arrested on a Friday. Well, these days they let everyone out.
Right.
It don't matter.
Now you get tickets all day long.
Yeah. So I go before the judge, and my mother's in the courtroom. My grandmother's in the courtroom, and I have an attorney. They brought an attorney for me, which is really good. A lot of people don't have that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so they explained to the judge that I was placed in Kings County Hospital. The judge obviously asked why. They say he was arrested last night. The jail felt that he wasn't mentally stable enough to be in the jail. My mother starts screaming at the judge. She starts yelling at the judge.
Yeah.
And because she wants to make sure that I get to a hospital. So she's telling the judge, if he kills himself, it's your fault. It's your fault. Yeah. And the judge
in the middle of the courtroom.
Yeah. And the judge is telling her to calm down and sit down. And she says, he's been in mental institutions. He's going to kill himself. I'm telling you, don't put him in jail. So the judge says, all right, let's order a 7:30 exam. right? What a 730 exam is under penal law 730 in New York State penal law. A 730 exam is a psychiatric evaluation, a 30-day evaluation to see if the person is fit to stand trial.
Okay.
Right.
So like you understood your crimes type of thing?
Perfect,
like
Pete. That's exactly what it is. Does the accused understand the charges against him? And can he assist his attorney in the rightly fashion? Right? And so they said, send them for the 30-day evaluation. So they shipped me back to Kings County Hospital for 30 days to do this evaluation. So the way I see it now is I just bought myself 30 days.
30 days, sure.
Right? Before I have to see the judge again. So what I start doing is you're going to get now psychologists are going to talk to you. Right. Every day you're meeting with doctors and they're medicating you. They're asking you about the crime, what happened in the crime, and I'm telling them I don't remember what happened. I'm out of my mind on angel dust. They said, do you remember how many times you stabbed the man? And so I says, well, maybe it was 4 or 5 times. They said it was 81 times. I said, right, I don't remember any of this. Right. And now they have access to my real psychiatric records from out of my life. Right? Because they get all that. And make a long story short so we don't go through that whole thing. I go back before the judge. The judge says, give him another 30. They said unfit for trial.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
the first 30 go around?
Right. Yeah, which is big because it was New York State doctors. Really? It was not my doctors. Right. It's their doctors.
Yeah, it's their doctor saying you're not.
Their doctor says, listen, Your Honor, we don't feel he understands the charges against him. And they said something that was very powerful that was in my favor. They said, we don't believe he belongs in the courtroom at this time because he is preoccupied with feelings of guilt. They said he feels so guilty about what he did that he can't even think straight. He's that screwed up from what he did. That's a big thing for them to tell the judge.
Yeah, I would say so.
That this guy feels so guilty for what he did that he hasn't come to yet. He's out of his mind. And so another 30-day evaluation. So I have these. So in this time, I'm going back and forth from Rikers Island to Kings County Hospital. Because on Rikers Island, they put me in a special place called C95 where they do psychiatric evaluations, right? So they give me 15 days here and 15 days there. They're shipping me back and forth. This goes on for 3 months, right? They keep ordering 30-day evaluations. And so at this point, the judge is offering me 20 to life already. They made the offer to 20 to life. He said, if you want to plead guilty, we could forget all these evaluations and just take 20 to life. So now I realize I got to do something. You know what I mean? So I'm standing in front of the judge. The night before court, I'm in Kings County, and I asked one of the workers there, yo, could I open the window? It's hot in here. The windows are behind lock and key. You follow me? So he unlocks the gate so I could open the window, and there's all broken glass there. So I just scoop up a few pieces of broken glass. All I need is a little sliver. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I take that and I bring it to court with me the next day.
Where'd you put it?
I had a sweatshirt on, and I just ripped the sleeve and tucked it in the
right
sleeve.
there on the cuff line?
Yeah, right. It's not metal, so it's not going to go off.
It's not going to
go
off.
What I mean? I just got a little piece of glass in there. So when I'm handcuffed, it's there, and I go to court. And I'm standing in front of the judge, and he makes me the offer of 20 to life. And when he makes me the offer of 20 to life, I slit my face open. Boom, rip my face open. Got about 24 stitches in my face.
Back to the rubber room.
Yeah, so at this point, he says, we're going to order what's called a 730-50. That's a 1-year evaluation.
Oh, shit.
No more 30-day evaluation. Wow. So now a 1-year evaluation, your case gets postponed.
Yeah. You bought yourself another year.
And they send you upstate now to Mid Hudson Psychiatric Center. I did a video on Mid Hudson Psychiatric Center. I suggest you guys go check that out. It's a pretty intense video. It's on Mid Hudson Psychiatric. Yeah, come in. Right? So, they send me to Mid Hudson. I'm not going to go through the whole thing in Mid Hudson, but this is all I want you to imagine. Imagine being with the criminally insane from Brooklyn, the Bronx, Queens, and Manhattan.
They put them in one place.
All in one place. Yeah. Dangerous place.
Yeah, sure.
More dangerous than prison.
Yeah, they got all the crazies under one roof.
Dude, so I walk in there. I want just check out my video on Mid Hudson. I go to Mid Hudson for the 1-year evaluation, and this is what I have to do now. What I have to do is I have to make these doctors believe. They know I'm not crazy. They know I'm not crazy. Doctors aren't stupid. You got to understand, these guys went to big medical schools.
Yeah, crazy diplomas on the wall.
Crazy people don't take a shower.
No?
Crazy people don't shave. Crazy people have terrible hygiene. Crazy people are rocking back and forth. They know I'm not crazy. And I can't keep up and act like that for a year.
No, that's crazy. Yeah, that's a long time.
But there's a big difference between being crazy. Come on.
I'm good.
You're good? There's a big difference between being crazy and having a mental illness.
Oh, yeah?
There's plenty of people that are mentally ill, but they're not crazy. Like you could have depression. That's a mental illness.
Okay.
Doesn't mean you're crazy.
Right.
You could suffer anxiety. Right? Doesn't mean you're crazy. Well, I'm going to have a problem with impulse control. Can't control my impulses.
Okay. Makes sense.
If I stab someone 81 times and murdered someone, I need to make them believe I have a problem controlling myself.
Sure.
It's the only thing I could think of. So what I do is there's guys in the psychiatric hospital that are playing crazy because they don't want to go to prison. Right? Kind of like what I'm doing in a way. Even though I may have been a little crazy.
Right.
But I'm playing it up a little bit.
I'm sure the chemicals in your body from when you were on the street doing bad shit.
I'm fucked up.
Yeah,
I'm pretty messed up. But I'm also, doing what I have to do. But there's a lot of guys in there that are playing crazy to beat the system, right? And they're taking advantage of the crazy people in there. I didn't like that.
Oh, yeah?
So I'm going to fuck them up. If I need to make them believe that I have a problem with impulse control, I might as well beat up the guys that are picking on crazy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right, and
beat up the guys that are acting.
Yes, every week or two, I am kicking the shit out of them. As soon as I see them bothering one of the people that are mentally ill, leave him alone. Get the fuck, bang, 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 bang.
Yeah, two of them up.
Yeah, and then what happens is they bring you before a team of doctors called HFC. It's the Hospital Forensic Committee. And they want to talk to you about why you did that. Why did you attack this? And I let the faucet go.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't control myself. I'm sorry. I'm just all bottled up, man. My life is over. I might as well kill myself. I can't take it anymore. And they say, all right, relax. But then the needles of medication come.
They dope you up.
Yeah, they dope you up. And, then if you try and hide it, throw it under your tongue, they catch you, and then it comes worse. They tied me down in 5-point restraints.
Yeah.
But I do this for a year. And now...
At least you got to beat up a lot of people.
Yeah.
They know you love to fight?
And the workers, too. Yeah,
oh, yeah?
Yeah, beat up the workers,
everybody.
too. Yeah,
everybody got it.
You can't be charged criminally because you're insane.
You're nuts.
Right,
Yeah.
So the hospital only holds two types of people. It holds people who are already found insane, not guilty by reasons of insanity.
That are doing their sentence there?
Yeah, they're doing their sentence there. The sentence is a day to life. 1 day to life.
Really?
Every 6 months, they go before a team of doctors to see if they're eligible for release.
Wow.
Called the Hospital Forensic.
But you can be let out being crazy too, right?
You can, yeah. Once they find you safe. Right. So who knows how long that's going to take. So after a year of going nuts like that, they say, put him back in front of the judge. They send me back to Rikers Island. I go back to Rikers Island, sit on Rikers Island for a few months. The judge says, 20 to life. The office still 20. I slit my face open again in front of him. I did the same thing. Another year evaluation back in Mid Hudson. I go up to Mid Hudson for another year.
Case is on hold.
Yeah, case is on hold for another year. I was arrested in 96. Now we got 96, 97. I'm back up in the hospital doing it again. And I'm doing my same routine up there in the hospital. And after another year goes by, they tell the judge that they feel that I'm insane. They said he's unfit to proceed. That was their legal conclusion. Unfit to proceed.
What, with your trial?
No, with the doctors would say.
Okay.
See, I always said there's one person, most people don't notice, there's one person that has more power than the judge.
And that is?
A doctor. A doctor has more power than a judge. If a doctor says that you can't be in that courtroom because you're not mentally fit, the judge can't do anything about it because he's not a doctor.
So then what happens to the case?
Right? It just sits on postponement.
Then you sit up.
You just sit.
Wow.
So now at this point, I'm sitting in the hospital for 2 years because the doctors are telling the judge he's unfit to proceed. He's unfit to proceed. And every time they put me in front of the judge, I'm cutting myself. Mm-hmm. So after the second year, they send me back to Rikers Island again. It's ping pong. I'm going back and forth.
You're playing
for years. Yeah. And it's rough. It's not easy.
Sure.
Being transferred back and forth. It's stressful. And then as I'm standing in front of the judge, I cut my throat open.
You did two this way and one across?
Yeah. I was standing in front of the judge. I take a piece of glass and I cut my throat open.
Now this is the third time.
The third time.
Oh,
and he sends me back up to that hospital for a third year.
Really?
And at the end of the third year, they said that they felt I was malingering.
What is that?
Playing crazy.
Really?
Yes. That's what the doctor said at the end of the third year.
This is going on too long.
Yep. They sent me back in front of the judge. They said, we believe that he could be malingering, which means that he's playing the system.
Yeah.
And the judge was actually said something that was in my favor, which was really cool. He said, you mean to tell me that this kid without a high school diploma has fooled 16 state doctors over 3 years? You said he was insane for the past 3 years.
Now he's faking.
And now he's faking. Right. So this didn't make sense to the judge. Right. And he says, at this time, he says, I will take the charge of manslaughter. My lawyer's also fighting for me.
Sure.
So my lawyer basically says to the judge, it's what's called going for the insanity plea. In New York State, 1% of people get it. 1%.
I believe it.
I really don't have a chance. In the 1970s, everyone used to get it.
Right.
And they got tired of it.
Yeah.
Right. And so my lawyer still played that card. He said, listen,
back then it was still new. What was it, 80s?
No,
early
this was
90s,
96.
Yeah, mid-90s.
He said he's been in 15 psychiatric hospitals since he's a child, but that was really my hometown helping me out. But it's still on paper.
Sure, right. You got a fucking track record.
He says he cut his face open twice in front of you. He cut his throat open in the courtroom. He stabbed someone 81 times. And the doctors have said he was insane for 3 years after the crime.
And now he's faking.
They said if he was insane for 3 years after the crime, he said, I say, then he had to be insane at the time of the crime.
Sure, that makes sense.
That's all the insanity plea is that you have to prove you were insane at the time of the crime. Not even an hour later, at the time of the crime. And so the judge said, all right, I will take the charge of murder in the second degree. I will drop it one thing to manslaughter in the first degree. He said, but he's got to take the maximum sentence.
Which is?
12 and a half to 25 years. That's the maximum sentence. You could get manslaughter in the first degree and get 5 years. He wasn't doing that. He says, I'll take murder in the second degree, drop it to manslaughter in the first degree. He said, but he pleads guilty and he gets the maximum sentence of 12 and a half to 25 years. I said, I'll take it. Right there, when he offered it, I said, I'll take it.
Deal.
Yeah, my lawyer came back into the bullpen and asked me, he said, would you take that? I said, go get that right now. Because it was the first time that I heard something without life
on it.
It took 3 years. It took 5 psychiatric hospitals, Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital, Kings County Psychiatric Hospital, Mid Hudson. And so I took the 12 and a half.
All the hard work paid off.
I asked him, I'll end with this. I had asked my lawyer when he offered me the 12 and a half to 25. I said, see if he'll give me 7 and a half to 15 years.
You still want to negotiate.
Yeah, so the lawyer says, don't do that. He says, just take the 12. I said, just ask him if I could get 7 and a half to 15, which was one step lower, you know. And so the lawyer wouldn't do that. But I asked the judge when I got in front of him. I said, Your Honor, is there any way that I could plead guilty and get 7 and a half to 15 years? And the judge took me in the hallway. Off of the record and said, if you don't take the 12 and a half to 25 right now, he says, I'm going to pull it off the table.
You're gonna get the life.
He said, we're going to go to trial. He says, and you're going to die in the New York prison system. He says, I guarantee you. I said, all right.
Fair enough, Your Honor.
I said, I'll take the 12 and a half to 25.
And how long did you wind up doing?
I did 17 years.
Because of getting knocked back and shit like that?
Yeah, but I got denied parole 3 times. I went to the parole board when I served 12 and a half. They said, no, come back in 2 years. So I went back at 14 and a half. They said, no, come back in 2 years. I went back at 16 and a half. They said, no, come back in 2 years. And then I reached what's called my CR date, which is your conditional release date. So, and I don't want to make it complicated, but my sentence was 12 and a half to 25. According to New York state law at that time, you could only do 80% of the maximum sentence life. So the CR date, the conditional release date was 16 years, 8 months.
That's 80% of 25.
Yeah, well, I lost a little good time too, right? So I had to do a little over 17 years. And that was it. I took it. And then once you take it, the ball starts rolling. You take it. They sent me back to Rikers Island. Within 30 days, I was packed up, moved to downstate correctional facility, and then sent to prison.
The 3 years that you fought it for the psych went on to the back end of that?
Every day that I did in the hospital counts.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
So you get what's called a time computation sheet when you get to prison. That sheet tells you how much time credit you have. And it shows all your dates, when you're eligible for parole, when your CR date is, and what the maximum date is, how long they can hold you. And so when I look, I see they didn't give me all the credit for the 3 years I did, right? They only gave me about 2 years. A little more than that. They owed me about 7 months, right? Which is common. They make mistakes on the computation sheet. 7 months is 7 months.
Sure, especially when you're sitting up.
They had me staying in prison 7 months longer. So I have to argue this, and I remember the guy's name. He was in charge. His name was Felix. He was in charge of the computation sheets. And I write him a letter and show him the math. This is when I was arrested. This is how much time I was in the hospital. You owe me this 7 months. Well, when he sent me a new computation sheet, he gave me another 3 years extra.
Nice.
So in other words,
that was in your favor.
Yes,
nice.
Right.
He's extra credit.
They made a mistake. Instead of them thinking that I had served 3 years already, they had me serving as like 5-6 years already.
That's nice.
So I said, I don't tell anyone.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. The next day, the corrected sheet came in the mail. Sorry, we made a mistake.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. And so that was it. So the way I see it is that I beat the murder charge. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I beat the murder charge by getting it down to manslaughter.
You knew you were going to come home sooner or later.
Right. Many people thought that's not beating it, doing 17 years, but I could have got 25 to life.
Right.
And so that's how that went. That's part of the story. And I don't know what else to tell you. That's it. I'm going to wrap this video up right now. And
that was pretty cool.
We'll see.
Thanks for having me.
I'll see you guys later.